Philip Dube is a criminal defense attorney with the Los Angeles County Public Defender's Office. Philip, I appreciate you being here. You know, initial reporting suggests this month, the Milwaukee DA's office asked the judge to set a $1,000 bail for Darrell Brooks. The judge went along with that. How are these decisions actually made? Who's making the call?
Oh, ultimately, it's a judge, right? A judge decides whether or not a defendant who's charged with a crime, in essence, is a flight risk. I mean, that's ultimately what they're looking for. They want to ensure every defendant's appearance in court. And if they don't have a history of failures to appear, warrants, arrest warrants, bench warrants, then the next question becomes, are they a suitable candidate for bail or bond? And the court can set what's called an affordable bond based on the defendant's ability to pay. In other words, what he can afford, and can also set conditions. There is tremendous reform going on across this country where there's a recognition that many people who are held either without bail or with high bail tend to be poor. And it suggests that if you have wealth and privilege, you can afford to post the bail and get out and stand trial out of custody. So there's this tension, if you will, between the haves and the have-nots, because obviously the poor people who are accused of a crime still have a presumption of innocence, but they don't have the money to bail out. So the court has to
many of them end up becoming your clients, I'm sure, and you're very familiar with these cases. So if we can take all of that you just said and maybe apply it to this case, because I know residents there, they're very upset. A local station in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, WITI, went through his charges and convictions dating back to 1999. They include slashing a man's face with a box cutter, drug charges, gun charges, jumping bail, flight risk. Also right now an active warrant in Nevada, driving over his girlfriend with a car this month. As a prosecutor, does Darrell Brooks sound like a good candidate for a $1,000 bail?
No, obviously, in my opinion, you have to balance also danger to the community. Obviously, he is a recidivist. He keeps reoffending. And, short of holding him without bail, that would be, the only way to prevent him from reoffending, unless you let him out OR on his own recognizance or set a super low bail. But I think what's going on here, though, is that there is this progressive reform recognizing that the prior record is really not so much before the court as the current pending charges are. And it's my understanding that the charges for which he posted the $1,000 bail were misdemeanor offenses. But the bigger puzzle, though, is that if he in fact had a fugitive out-of-state warrant out of Nevada, I don't know how he was able to get out of custody unless that warrant popped up after he was released. Because all the money in the world will not release you on that out-of-state warrant unless you're brought before the court in Nevada. So, or unless bail was set on that warrant, and he posted that as well. So I don't know if there was a systemic failure here where the judge and the DA just overlooked so many of the factors, and the out-of-state jail agencies, either recalled the warrant or didn't have it in place at the time of his release from the Milwaukee County Jail.
Talk to me about this legal and ideological tension that you were mentioning earlier, because even if the judge didn't know the full extent, the entirety, the prosecutors seem to be familiar with him given his rap sheet. And the Milwaukee DA's office, which is led by John Chisholm, is now investigating the low bail in this case. So, a writer for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, the local paper, pointed out several years ago in this article right here that Chisholm had long prioritized criminal justice reform, ideological, knowing that there are some risks. And they're quoting him here, quote, "Is there going to be an individual I divert or I put into a treatment program who's going to go out and kill somebody?" Chisholm said in a 2007 interview with the Journal-Sentinel. "You bet. Guaranteed. It's guaranteed to happen. It does not invalidate the overall approach," end quote. In Waukesha, many residents would disagree with that. What is your thought on that?
Well, first of all, to be fair, okay, again, when bail is set, it's based on what is before the court at that moment in time. You cannot foresee that maybe if he were to be released that he would go out, and commit a sextuple murder, or that he would go out and commit, 5 counts of rape. You have to deal with what is before you. Unless there is hard proof, some hard evidence that he, in fact, intends upon release to go out and commit more crimes, you can't just assume in a vacuum and in the abstract that people will reoffend and therefore they should be held without bail. Philip, can I ask you,
though? We've seen what seems to be reoffenses. And again, he was not found guilty on all these charges. Some are charges, some are verdicts that came down. But there were allegedly tire tracks on his ex-girlfriend's legs. The idea of him going out and allegedly using his vehicle as a weapon to run over people is not so far-fetched.
Oh, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I necessarily agree with this whole progressive reform. I'm just letting you know the rationale and where it's coming from. But again, to be fair, would you automatically jump to the conclusion that because somebody had a beef with a girlfriend, that they were going to go out and avenge their anger from that girlfriend to the general public at a Christmas parade and just mow down, 65, 70 people? That kind of quantum leap is not foreseeable or realistic. I mean, let's be honest, you cannot bag every legal system that we create procedurally in the law on a wing and a prayer that there might be an aberration with somebody, going outside the foreseeable bounds of what everybody would expect. You have to have some reasonable system in place for just about everything. And unfortunately, you're going to get an aberration, and here's one of them.
Understood. And I know you're in the system each and every day dealing with people on either side of the bench, and knowing that the law might be one thing written down, humans are fallible, and it's an ongoing discussion about whether bail is being applied appropriately or not. Thank you for helping us think through some of these things that I know a lot of communities are right now. Philip Dube, we really appreciate it.
Take care. Good night.